Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedom and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country. In the courtrooms of America, Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedom.
You've seen a lot about the polls, but what's happening at the grassroots level? And are pastors finally speaking out on biblical issues? Hi, I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, you've seen a lot of the issues coming out by the media regarding the polls in terms of where people are with regards to the election. Question is, however, what's happening with the grassroots and particularly the pastors? And that's what I want to talk about, is focusing on the pastors, because we've been for many years, and me as a former pastor before going into law school, I have a very huge respect and interest in pastors and love to speak with them. And we've been able to speak to many of them around the country. We've been able to send out tens of thousands of information packets, silence is not an option packet, to churches all over the country. What I'm seeing is that the pastors this year are becoming more bold in speaking out on biblical values than ever before. I was just recently in St. Louis and spoke to about 800 pastors and their wives and church leaders. In Ohio, I spoke to about 500 pastors and their wives. We've sent out about 50 to 70,000. The numbers are continuing to grow. Silence is not an option packets to pastors and churches around the country. I'm beginning to see pastors and others literally starting to wake up and really speak biblical issues from the pulpit.
It's exciting to see, and waking up is the right way to put it. I think a lot of pastors in past years have kind of sat back, wanted to go with the flow. They don't want to rile people in their parishioners and their congregants, and so they just kind of try to avoid these political things because they've heard the line pushed over and over again from groups like the ACLU and Barry Lynn's Americans United, and that, pastors can't talk about anything political. You have to avoid that from the pulpit. Well, we have done a good job, I think, of educating, finally, pastors to the reality that if you get a letter in the mail, a church, as Barry Lynn has recently sent out letters to 60,000 pastors full of disinformation, trying to intimidate them into avoiding these important cultural issues. If you get a letter from Barry Lynn, it's a waste of paper. It's no more likely that there's any truth in that than there is a truth in a publisher's clearinghouse sweepstakes letter that tells you could be a millionaire. It's junk mail. Throw it away. The reality is pastors are finally understanding that. They're speaking from the pulpit, and they're getting engaged in our culture.
And even in the publisher's clearinghouse letter, there's probably at least one winner. The problem is with Barry Lynn, there's zero winners. He has never won a case on this issue. So he's never had a victory. He sends out these 60,000 letters to these pastors, trying to silence them, put a muzzle on them, and basically saying, you better not do any political or partisan politicking, because if you do, the IRS will ultimately take your tax exemption, which is just bogus, because not one church in history has ever lost its tax exemption for engaging in political activity, not one. So Barry Lynn has a 0% batting record. Liberty Counsel, on the other hand, we are countering that, and we have sent out tens of thousands of Silence is Not an Option packets. Those include a DVD that I did on what pastors and churches can do. It also includes the Patriots Handbook on Political Action for Pastors and Churches and some other information. And we have on our website at lc.org information about what pastors and churches can do. And we also have voter guides for the presidential election, for the Senate races in many of the key swing states. And then we also have the voter guide with regards to the Democratic and Republican platform, where we compare them back and forth. These are 501c3 compliant. Churches can pass them out. And so what we are doing is educating pastors. But I'm also seeing pastors that are interested in getting involved. I was coming from Philadelphia the other day, where I spoke at an America for Jesus rally, where there were at least 5,000 people gathered there for a time to pray for America. And I was going through an airport, ran into a pastor friend that I know, a great guy, is retired but doing an interim pastorship right now, is very apolitical when he gets in the pulpit. But he approached me as we were walking the opposite directions. He says, "What do you think about what's happening in America?" We started to talk. He said, I've actually asked someone to give me a bullet point of what's happening currently in the administration with regards to moral issues. And he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put up on the screen and just list the different moral issues that the current administration has ultimately addressed or undermined. He says, I'm not going to tell people who to vote for. To me, that was an amazing thing for this pastor to do that. This would be the last person that you would ever think would address governmental issues from a biblical perspective or election-related issues from a biblical perspective and educate the people about what's going on in our country. And yet he's doing it. If he is doing it, I can tell you what, other pastors around the country, and I'm seeing them, are doing the same thing.
There's a reason for that. In the animal kingdom, there are a lot of animals that are pretty docile until they get backed into a corner. And then they have to defend themselves and then watch out. I think a lot of these pastors are feeling it. They know that through the HHS mandate, through another of arbitrary edicts that have come out of the Obama administration, that their freedom to be pastors and preach the gospel of Jesus Christ is under threat. Matt, one of my favorite quotes, Jerry Falwell, I'm reminded of like 1979, 1980. He gave a call to arms then. He said, what is wrong in America today? We preachers, and there are 340,000 of us who pastor churches, we hold the nation in our hand. And I say this to every preacher, we are going to stand accountable before God if we do not stand up and be counted. And I'm excited because today, just like we did back in 1980, we're seeing pastors standing up and being counted.
They are. And Dr. Falwell back in 1965 preached a sermon called Ministers and Marches, in which he actually stated that ministers should not be marching. It was obviously addressing the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King Jr. out there marching as a minister. He felt that ministers should not be political, that they should stay behind the pulpit, preach the gospel, that going out and doing all these political marches was not a minister's calling. But that changed on January 23, 1973, the day after Roe v. Wade. He reads in the Lynchburg News and Advance newspaper that Roe v. Wade was just decided by the United States Supreme Court. And he was very disturbed. At the end of the day, Jonathan, his son, said as he gathered the family together and told the family that America had just committed a grave sin with this abortion decision, said, Daddy, you've got to do something about it. And that was the turning point in his life. Up until the very day he died, people thought, well, he's very political. He's always involved in these different politics. But he would tell you he's not political. He's a pastor. Everything he's done and does is from his calling as a pastor. What he ultimately said was, when he realized that the government was coming into the realm of these biblical moral issues, he had no choice but to speak. And when that happened, and he realized this in 1973, he was speaking as a pastor. He was compelled to address these biblical and moral issues. That's what I'm seeing pastors doing today. They're seeing the government coming in, whether it's on abortion or homosexuality or marriage or you name it, that the government is intruding into these biblical values that are non-compromisable, and they have no choice but as a pastor to follow their calling and spirit.
And Dr. Falwell, and I'm going to paraphrase his quote, he said, they accuse me of getting biblical. They accuse me of getting political. I'm not getting political. I can't help it that they've taken these moral issues and politicized them. I'm doing my duty as a pastor to engage the culture and engage these moral, biblical issues that happen to also be political issues.
That's right. And so what we want you to do is to be encouraged. What we see is a lot of these pastors around the country rising up. I've spoken in a number of places around the country, not only to pastors but also people at the grassroots. And there is a resurgence of interest because of where we are and the moral issues that the government is ultimately undermining. I encourage you to go to Liberty Counsel's website and do a couple of things. Number one, pray for Liberty Counsel, obviously, for the ministry. We're out there trying to educate and motivate people to vote biblical values. We need to get people to vote those values. As you act and believe on Sunday, you must act and do on Tuesday as well. We also want to get information out to pastors, and we have already sent information to tens of thousands of pastors, but we need your help to get it out to other pastors as well. You can go to the website lc.org. You can sign up for that Liberty Alert email and also the Grassroots Action email as well, right there on the website. And we will send you some information about how you can get involved, or call us, 1-800-671-1776. I'd like for you to get several of these, a handful of these, many of them, however many you need, to take to your local churches. And that's the Patriots Handbook on Pastors and Political Action. We also have the DVD as well. What we want to do is have you become part of this army of people around the country to educate and motivate your pastors and pastors in your community to speak biblical values. Now is the time not to remain silent. We are at a critical time of the future of America and literally the survival of Western civilization. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I'm not an alarmist, but I believe that we ought to be alarmed at where we are in our country's history. Go to Liberty Counsel's website for more information. Help support this ministry, lc.org, or call today 1-800-671-1776.
You have been listening to Faith and Freedom with Liberty Counsel. We hope that we have motivated you to stand up for your faith, family, and freedom. We can accomplish a lot when we work together. Get informed and get involved today. Sign up for our free monthly newsletter, The Liberator. We will send it out to you free of charge. Stay informed with our Liberty Alert email updates. Just click on the website at www.lc.org or call us at 1-800-671-1776. Tune in next time to learn more about your rights right here on Faith and Freedom.